world of difference. I wouldn't say they were focused.
Okay.
But they were present.
Good.
They were present in the classroom, not,
Yeah, I'm so
But
glad.
my question really is, there's 1,200 private schools in Texas right now.
Yes, ma'am.
There are 250,000 students,
Mhm.
and we're gonna send them another 900,000.
Yeah.
They do not, the current schools do not have capacity, right?
Right.
They're already at capacity.
Yeah.
Then they can't do a bond and build another building. Which means we're gonna have a lot of new schools coming in, right? And I know that there was a lot of safety issues and a lot of oversight that was taken out of this bill. So, the school voucher bill. There's no regulation on these new schools that are coming in. In fact, right now, all they have to do, they don't even have to be a school, just register to do business in the state of Texas. So my concern is, you mentioned Florida and some of the other places that got vouchers, their school performance their school grades and performance went down, the students' performance went down so much.
Okay. Haven't seen that, but I'll take your word for it.
Well, it's in their statistics. But we've got a chance to, that was a big bill, and we had to get it through, right? And so we got a chance now in the new session to tweak. What have you got on the docket to put some oversight into, so that into the private school, the new private schools, so that we don't have that situation?
Absolutely. That was a very big concern with every member when we were working on the school choice bill, because it's taxpayer money, and we want to make sure that just like every other way we spend taxpayer money, it's accounted for and it's not going towards things it shouldn't go to. So there are actually some measures in place. For example, if you're not an accredited school, you can't get the money. So you're not going to get reimbursed for the money if you send a kid, a child using the money to go to a school, that school has to be accredited. So these new schools that pop up, they can't get the money until they've been through a very strenuous accreditation process. And there's a whole office that will be reviewing those schools, again, before they ever see $1 of taxpayer money. So there are some strong protections, because I'm with you. I don't want kids to be going to a school that may not even be a school, may just be a name on a building, and we don't really know what they're actually doing. And so there are very strong provisions in there. And if you're caught misusing those dollars, if you get reimbursed for that money and you're not using it the right way, you can be held criminally and civilly liable for misuse of taxpayer money, and the Attorney General can prosecute you for that. So again, it's taxpayer money, and it's not just taxpayer money, it's our kids' education. I say that all the time. Education is a golden ticket for kids. That's their ticket to success in life. Certainly it was true for me, and I know that's true for these other kids. So that program is has a lot of stopgaps to make sure that we're doing it the right way. Even for our reimbursement in general, you can only get reimbursed for very specific things, and it's going to be when we stand up the program, you really only will be able to get reimbursed for academic things. For special education, you can get reimbursed for therapy, which I'm very glad that that's included in there. And you can have tutoring and get reimbursed for tutoring. But again, those people that are tutors, they have to be accredited, they have to have been teaching for a certain amount of time, and they have to have certain certificates. So we are making sure that money is spent wisely.
I may have gotten something wrong. I thought they gave the money directly to the parent.
No, it's a reimbursement, and so actually.
So the school files for the reimbursement?
No, sorry, I confused it. Okay, so you know how your health savings account works?
Right.
So you put the money in there, and then you're allowed to spend it on certain things.
Right.
That's sort of how this would work. The TEA will put the rules in place for exactly what it'll look like, but that's what I've been told is the best example. So, for example, you're given that account, and then you're going to go to a certain website or put in, hey, I spent this amount of money on X, or Y, or whatever. But unless it's on the list and it's been approved, you won't get reimbursed for that. So, I probably confused you even more with that. But
because I thought they were like health savings accounts, which means if I go to the grocery store and give them my health savings card and then they run it through, they get paid.
Yeah.
So there's no like reimbursement aspect to it.
Yeah, reimbursement's the wrong word for it. I guess approved. Approved would be the right word. So if you're gonna go and make a payment, it has to be approved. Yes. Yeah.
But you can make it, but it might be the parent that have to pay.
You can make it, but it may not be approved. So you would take the action of making it. And so approved is the right word. There will be approved list of vendors and items that you can spend it on. So that's how it'll work when it's operational. But yeah. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
So I appreciate what has been done with the AI to protect children, for the physical therapy. I appreciate those things. There's a lot of things I disagree with. You expressed that in regards to redistricting, you said it was legal and fair. You expressed wanting to have like a level playing field. So it seems like fairness is a priority to you. Fairness is a priority to me as well. For me, my feelings about the redistricting is that it's very obviously not fair. You can probably gather that I'm not a Republican. So, for example, like the last election, 56% of Texas voters voted for Trump. But with congressional districts, 71% of those congressional districts, right, were red. So that's an outsized amount compared to what the voters asked for, right? And with the new redistricting map, 79% of those districts would go red. Now, I understand that that's your party, and this room is full of people from that party, but in my view, and what I learned growing up in school, and what I counted on, was that the community speaks and has a say. That's why it's called representative. But it feels to me like what's happening right now in Texas and what's being voted on is not intended to represent the voters. And I get it, like if I have ideas that are different and I'm outvoted, like majority rules, and I get that. But what's going on right now, can you please like explain to me how you feel that's fair? Because you represent me, even though, right, I don't traditionally vote Republican, but I still want to be heard, and I still have family and friends and so many people that also want to be heard and represented. And so I know we're not gonna agree on everything, but that just seems like it's stacking the deck to make sure my voice and others who might be on the other side don't have a chance to have their voices heard, and that's so demoralizing. And so, can you please explain how you feel that it's fair, because you make the point that it's fair?
Yeah, I'm so happy to do that. And before I do explain that, something that I forgot to say that I meant to, if any of you, including you, want to come and sit down with me and talk through any issue, when we're not in session, that's basically what I do all the time. Catherine can attest to this. I have meetings at my district office in Round Rock all the time. I try to show up to as much as I can so that your voice isn't lost. When I was growing up and I went to vote for people, I had no idea who any of them were. And when I ran for office and I talked to people after the election and they said, oh, I voted for you, it still blew me away that they voted for me without even knowing me, And so I have always tried, ever since I've been elected, to be as present as I can and around as many people as I can, so that as many people as possible out of the 200,000 that I represent can at least have seen me at an event or met me or seen something, some way that they can connect. So I would love to set up a time with you to not just talk about this issue, but all sorts of other issues. Again, we passed 1,200 bills. All of the bills that I passed had bipartisan support. When we work together in Texas, it's all of us. And unfortunately, on this one issue, I don't think that we'll agree. I I do think it's fair. I think it's the majority party, and we have a lawsuit that has said you can draw maps on political performance. And in Texas, we've just shown through all these elections that Republican policies are more popular than Democrat policies.
Right.
That's just how it's playing out.
But my
And so
question was
those,
about the
those,
outsized popularity, right, that's gonna be represented, and so
Yes.
that's what I'm trying to understand, how is that
yes,
fair?
and that's what those maps reflect. That Republican policies are more popular than Democrat policies. And so I do believe that those maps are fair. I believe they're illegal. And, you know, I'm sure that the Democrats, they've already said that they would like to challenge it in court. And so I'm sure when that happens, there will be way more that we will see play out, and we'll see more of that. But according to the lawsuits that have already played out, everything we're doing is legal and everything we're doing is fair. And again,
And you're always gonna draw a district map. If you continue to redraw them, you're redrawing them in your favor. So you're creating a cycle that's just perpetuating itself. How can you explain that District 11, which I used to live in and grow up, all right? Tom Green, right, San Angelo, is 500 miles from Pflugerville. So the whole district is here, and then all of a sudden you sliver between Georgetown, between Austin, go capture Pflugerville. And for those of us who also lived in Austin, since we were 9, so I grew up there and lived here, we watched East Austin get gerrymandered, we watched them get pushed out, we watched the whole black historical community move and migrate to Pflugerville. And so now we've gone and captured this tiny little group, and we've put it over here with West Texas, which has a large Republican MAGA population. And now these people cannot get over here. A city urban place cannot get over here to their representative. Their voices can't be heard, and their people have been displaced over and over again. How do we see that as fair? Because that's not fair. It's not fair when one day your voice matters, and the next day it's you take 5 white people to 1 black person. Do you understand that? 1 black community member now has 5 votes against them. If you're Hispanic, it's 1 in 3. How is that fair? That's not a Republican Democrat thing. That's not based on politics. That's based on demographics.
that I really think that we're not gonna agree on this issue. I'm happy to continue to talk to y'all about this afterwards, but if it's okay, again, I just don't think we're gonna get there, so if it's okay, we'll move on to some other questions, but I'd love to chat with y'all about it afterwards if that's okay with y'all. Just so we can get to some more questions.
You talked about legality, but my question wasn't about whether it's legal. My question was what is your thought on why it is fair? And so I would hope that we would discuss it here.
Yeah.
If you, it
Well,
sounds like you really, really don't want to, and so I will follow up with you. I appreciate, you
That's
you
great.
saying that you're open to discuss. I hope
Yeah, I
that in
would
the
love
future
to.
you will also publicize these meetings a little more broadly, because I have to search. I
Well,
follow your Facebook and it wasn't.
and we're good.
May I interject? We appreciate your questions, and we understand your frustration, but we need to let other people ask questions, if you don't mind. And she will, I'm telling you, I'm a witness, she will answer whatever questions you have on a one-on-one basis. And we appreciate you being here and expressing your frustrations, but we do need to let other people ask her some questions.
Yeah, and we have had town halls, we've had them last year, we've had more, we've just been in session and special session, and I know again, I think there's some things out there about, me not meeting with a constituent. She actually called and apologized to our office because we had met for over an hour, and so, again, we are trying to be everywhere, and meet with everybody. We really, really are, that's our goal and our focus. So, any other questions, anybody? Yes, yeah.
Here's something that's specific, and perhaps to your question.
Yeah.
How can we address this districting? We over in Eastern Lansing County, trying to keep in this, and I think some of the Lansing counties too, we have been chopped out of our traditional, representative districts. That means that our, precinct
So during this process, we had several hearings, public hearings, and we also accepted written comments, so, yeah. Okay, no, you definitely did with us.
The best thing is to talk to your office.
Yes and no. So yes, we passed along those concerns. I'm not on the committee, but we did pass those along to the chairman and the people that are on the committee. The second piece of that is you can submit written comments of your concerns to the committee itself. So even if they don't have a bill before them, you can submit them and they go through all of it. So they go through all the record, and that's public record too. So that goes on public record. Everybody can look and see your comments. So that's the best way. But we did pass that along. Oh yeah, there's a map. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Just real quick to follow up on what you were saying, once this passes, and if it goes through the judicial, and it stays the same, at the county level, we will redraw our precinct. So like right now, if you look at that, the left line it goes up Sloan, which cuts through the middle of my precinct, 427. 429. I'm 429. It's been a long day. So it goes through 429. All that down on the loop is where Greg lives, and that's where Pat Warner represents, and that's 456. If you go up the left side, that's 95. On the left side of 95 up to 7th Street is my district. Above 7th Street is where Annette starts, and then she goes north of Murphy Lake and goes north.
But I'm in 17 and I want to be back at 31 where you used to.
Well, that's not gonna happen. That's not gonna happen. So for the first time, and this is the thing that I talked to Congressman Sessions last week, and Caroline was at that meeting too with the chamber in Hutto, is that Congressman Sessions is now the largest representative of Williamson County for the first time ever. Since Carter's been elected, he's no longer the majority representative in Williamson County. Williamson County will be the largest county population-wise for CD17. So this is, Williamson County will become the largest county in District 17 for Sessions, even though he lives in Waco. And then
That might be better to do that with.
yeah, if you can look at that.
With Williamson County.
Right. And so Congressman Carter will now represent two brand new counties that he didn't represent before and never has represented. Essex County and I think,
Just in case, there's many lines right there.
Mills County. Yeah, that's right. And so, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, a lot of people have called us about Congressman Carter not representing the majority of Williamson County. That's the phone call we've gotten the most county party. So we'll see what happens, but I mean, at least we're getting a good congressman. Congressman Sessions is great. And he'll be at the picnic if you want to see him.
Okay, other questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, so at the beginning of the first special session, I believe y'all prioritized the redistricting. Like that's what went out first, and that's why the Democrats left. But I've seen some of your media appearances, and you seem to blame the Democrats for pushing off the flood relief. But to me, it seems like the state Republicans are using the flood relief as like political bait to, cram through the redistricting, because I'm sure y'all were aware that the Democrats were just not going to have that. So my question to you is, did you consider redistricting more important than flood relief?
Absolutely not. And I'll explain a little bit more about the first special session. So the governor called the first special session and the flooding hadn't happened yet. And so he called the special session and then we had all the flooding happen. And so he put that on the call and we did have that on the call. Now when we first started the special session, we had those bills ready to go. We actually had the flooding legislation on the floor for us to vote on for maybe even a week, but we could not do that because the Democrats left. And so to me, that's taking away your constituents' voice. That's walking off the job. It's walking out on your responsibilities. That's how I view it. We were elected to be there and stand for our constituents and speak for our constituents. And when you leave, you're not there to present your side of the story. Your side of the story is not going on record. It's not going to be presented before your constituents. You are leaving this state and taking the voices of 200,000 people with you for each representative that left this state. They walked off the job. And everybody can understand that and see that. And again, going back to quorum, we need 100 members to get any business done. And there is legislation to change that so that we only need 76 members to get things done, so that this never happens again, where these members can stall things like important flood relief. Now, I just don't see how going out of state and spending your days doing TV interviews and press conferences was doing your job for Texans when we had so much legislation ready to work on. It wasn't just flood relief. They also were stalling legislation on changing the STAR test, on property tax relief, on human trafficking. There were a lot of other issues that we were there ready to work on, and we were all there. We showed up every day because even if the roles were reversed, I would be there because that's what my constituents elected me to do. They elected me to go down to the Capitol every other year for 140 days, and if we get called back by the governor. And so I think that's another thing that we may just disagree on. To me, it's walking off the job. And I wish that for the families that were there today, that we spent time with, that were watching everything we did today, I wish they had gotten that moment of relief and tiny bit of comfort amidst everything they were dealing with. I wish they had had that sooner. I really do. And unfortunately, that did not happen. And so, no, redistricting was definitely not prioritized more than the flooding. And I'm glad that we were able to get it done. Texas will continue to be a state where Republicans and Democrats work together. But in this situation, Democrats stalled legislation. They killed all of these bills in the first special session. They're the reason why we had to be there today to get this done and why it took so long. So I'm just going to leave it there. But are there any other questions? Anybody have another question on that?
Can I just clarify
Sure.
something? So, I think it's State Bill 4 now. That was the redistricting, right?
This session, yes.
Yeah, so last session, did the redistricting bill come to a vote before the flood relief bill?
No, it didn't,
It
because the Democrats left, and so everything was stalled. We had.
So nothing came to a vote?
Say again?
Nothing came to the floor?
Nothing came to the floor because it can't come to the floor without 100 people. Now, if they had been there, the day that they had shown up, we would have been able to vote on it on the floor. We would have been able to take it up, debate it, the redistricting, the flooding, and several other things. We were ready to go. But no, none of it could come to the floor without them.
But you did the redistricting first, this special session?
This special session, yes. We did it yesterday, we did the flood relief today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is our Texas government looking to provide more of our best resource that we need, which is water?
Yes, ma'am. Oh my gosh. You hit on the one thing that I did not talk about. So, when it comes to water, let's see, give me 1 second. We put $2.5 billion into the Texas Water Fund And, we are also, y'all will get to vote on this, we are also going to, let me find my notes here. We're gonna add $1 billion every year for the next 20 years, if y'all approve that as a constitutional amendment. So that will be on the ballot in November. So that, I think, is as far as I know, that's the most significant investment we've ever made for water in Texas. Desalination, to address, a lot of our water is lost through leaks, old equipment, stuff like that. So we actually expanded, the projects that this money can go to include projects like that. So yes, desal to get more water in circulation, but also we lose so much water through leaks and old pipes and stuff like that. And so a lot of that will go towards shoring up our infrastructure so that we can save water that way as well. So I'm so glad we brought that up because it's a lot of money and it's a huge investment. So yeah, we're working on that. Yes, we definitely need it. And there's actually a legislation on the special session about groundwater and putting in some regulations where for a developer, if you're gonna build a new project, you have to prove that there is water for the project, that you have access to groundwater. So that's yes, exactly. So yes, this was a huge session for water as well. So Senator Perry's SB 7 is that legislation. So if you want to go look it up, there's a lot to it. But yes, 2.5 billion to start with, and then $1 billion over the next 20 years, if y'all approve it on the ballot. Anything else, or yeah, one more.
Can you do it briefly?
Okay.
We're running out of time.
I just, you mentioned that you were fiscally conservative, and I wondered if you could talk us through the reasons behind the passage of the voucher bill that initially will cost $1 billion,
Right.
but in 5 years, it'll cost $14.5 billion.
Okay.
Where is that fiscally conservative, and how do we intend to pay for that without impacting our property taxes or any more? It's been shown in Ohio and Florida and Arizona that this will happen, so why is Texas going down the same path?
Yeah, very good question. We're trying to give so much money back in property tax relief. We don't want to add to your property tax relief with our funding. So I'm not sure. We don't have in state law that it's going to increase to that amount over 5 years.
It's
So
in
that
the-
is-
It's in the bill.
Well, okay, let me back up. That is allowed to happen. Whether it will happen or not remains to be seen. So we are starting with the 1 billion, and we can add more, but it's not a requirement to add that money in the next 5 years. So again, the starting off with the $1 billion in that program is very, very, very stringent on what it can be used for. And, you know, if you're talking about education and attendance and funding for public schools, for example, if you've got a family that takes their kiddo out of public school and puts them in, you know, another school and they get that $10,000, it's gonna net out, because we spend more than $10,000 per kid in public education.
That's not true.
We spend about 15, almost 15, and I know we're probably gonna have a difference of opinion on where it comes from,
No, it's just the
but
numbers.
the allotments and everything that adds together, so we actually are gonna be spending less per kiddo in the school choice program than if they were in the public school program.
I would just ask
Yeah.
that you read the bill again and.
I read it today, but I'm happy to read it again. Yeah.
That Texas will be spending at least $14.5 billion in 5 years. It's gotta come from somewhere.
Yeah, and thankfully, the Lord has really blessed Texas, and we have continued to add to our budget. Our revenue continues to go up. And I'll just add, we spend almost $100 billion on public education. We make a significant investment. So when you're talking about 1 billion or even 4.5, I mean, the difference is so stark, and we are always gonna be fiscally responsible. So in 5 years, if our revenue is not coming in, I would not vote for an increase. I mean, if we don't have the money to spend on a program, we're not gonna spend it. I mean, that's just being fiscally conservative. So thankfully, the Lord has blessed Texas, and we do have the revenue for those programs right now.
And one more thing about that is, while our schools, our public schools are so important to 95% of our students.
Yes, yeah.
And yet, the historic bill doesn't even meet the inflation rate of 2019. We are, almost every school district is going into the 2026 school year in deficit. And how will we, or is there talk about how that will be increased so that our schools can actually function on balanced budgets in the future?
Absolutely. Now, part of the deficit is from COVID money that the state received, that schools received, and so some of these school districts, not all of them, but some of them spent that money on recurring expenses, not one-time expenses. They were encouraged to use the money on one-time expenses because the state cannot afford to fill in all those gaps of COVID funding that the federal government gave us. So a lot of the deficits are from that money no longer being available because that was only available from the federal government for a certain amount of time. The other part of the deficits, according to superintendents, at the beginning of session, I had a meeting with every superintendent in Williamson County at the Capitol, and I just listened for about an hour, and we talked through all these things. One of the things they said is the deficit is also due to property insurance increases. And so that's another huge thing that has really impacted their budgets. That's something that we will talk about. And then administrative budgets. That really, if you look at the past, maybe 15 years, you will see administrative budgets and positions have gone up, but teacher positions have not. And so when I was talking to the superintendents, they actually said that in Round Rock, for example, he said they're not firing anybody over any deficits, and actually a lot of those positions they added in the past 3 to 5 years were administrative positions, and so they're just moving those people around. So it's not really that there's lack of funding, it's more so where's that funding going. I had a superintendent ask me, or rather say that we shouldn't prioritize the money to go to teachers, we should just give it to the schools and they can just decide how to spend it. Those are the things that, we just want to make sure that we're taking care of the right people, and teachers are the right people. They spend every day with those kiddos, they have a tough job. So it was a significant investment in public education, and like I said, education is a golden ticket. Every member in the Texas House and the Texas Senate wants public education in general to be number one. We want Texas to be number one when it comes to education. Whether that's public education, private education, we want to be number one. And so you'll see the legislation we worked on this session, aside from the funding, it is all geared towards moving Texas to the top. We want to be the top, every single member. Democrat, Republican, doesn't matter. We all want to be number one. So we are always working on it, and we will continue to always work on that until we get there. Okay, and I will be around, so any other questions, I can get. Thank you.
I want everybody to